All right, welcome back. We are ACI course 11, class 5 already. It's July, it's January 25th, 2026. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Working with emptiness and karma, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that intention, turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that, teach me that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the pure world. They are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kaunirya Tayam. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community through the merit that I do. In sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. All right, we are still working with joyous effort, or what will become our perfection of joyous effort. And last class, we learned what is effort? It is joy in doing good. Sun Gong Ge La Troa O. So fun to say. And then he explained that there are 3 factors that work against our joyous effort. One of them is just laziness. Another one is attraction to improper activities, to activities that will actually do us harm, whether we realize it or not. And then the third one was discouragement, like just thinking, I can't do that. Neat idea, Bodhisattva way of life sounds great. Right, not me, I can't possibly. And so tonight's class is all about what do we do when we recognize we have this discouragement, this giluk? How do we combat it? How do we prevent it? If we don't have it, hooray, may we never get it. But if it does show up, what do we do? I'm going to go right into that because these classes are getting longer and longer by the class. Okay, there are you guys. So giluk is the term for discouragement, personal discouragement. And giluk me, you see it in the vocabulary list, means not discouraged. So what we want is this attitude of giluk me, to not be discouraged, which is enthusiastic. Then we're enthusiastic. And he says in this first verse about this, that I'm not going to read the verses, you read them, I've got them posted, that there are these 4 forces that we can have at our disposal. This discouragement comes when we hear about these stories of the great bodhisattvas, and they'll be someplace and be so inspired to get a teaching that they don't have anything to offer. They decide to cut their own flesh and sell their flesh so that they can get money to make an offering to get a teaching. We've heard that story. Or the great bodhisattva who pulls out his eye and hands it to the old lady, and then she gets upset with him and stomps on it. And I don't know. That's just like, is it really? Right? Really? Am I gonna have to do that? Is my original reaction. And then, as time has gone on, it's like, no, no, there'll be a time when I get to do that. And it'll be great. But I'm not there yet. And so hearing about those stories as if it's a requirement to do that, those kinds of things, makes me feel like, oh man, I'm not sure I can really do this. And that's the discouragement he's talking about. And so, of all the different things he might tell us to support us and help us grow our enthusiasm back, really he spends most of his effort helping us understand our Buddha nature as the main factor in overcoming our discouragement. So Geshe-la takes the opportunity to go into this topic, Buddha nature, in greater depth than Master Shantideva is, because he wants us to understand it really well, because it's misunderstood by many, apparently. Okay, so Master Shantideva is comparing the Bodhisattva's way of life to a king's life somehow. And he's alluding to this: assemble the forces to take complete command of yourself, that the king has at their disposal 4 armed forces that each has their own specialty that he can deploy in order to protect his people. In the old times, they had elephanteers, charioteers, infantry, and cavalry. So Master Shantideva is using that analogy and is going to give us 4 different powerful forces that we can cultivate that will be like our elephanteers, charioteers, cavalry, and whatever the 4th one was, in order to help us protect ourselves and fight against our mental afflictions. So we're talking about our own mental afflictions, not fighting with anybody else, using the anybody else to show us what mental afflictions we are needing to do our battle with. So he gives us these 4 different forces that we can cultivate. They are Goche Sundru, Jorwei Tsundru, Flirhlangwa, and Dakini Wangja. So this first one, Goche Tsundru, it means the effort of armor, donning the armor. So a soldier puts on this chainmail, and the sword hits the chainmail and can't cut them, supposedly. And this first thing that helps us overcome or prevent our discouragement is some kind of chainmail that we adorn ourselves or protect ourselves with on a daily basis. And there are many different things that can serve as our chainmail. The main one here for the Bodhisattva is our compassion, but just not plain old compassion, which is to see somebody suffering and, oh gee, that's terrible. But to understand that suffering as something that is ripening seeds. The suffering I see is results of my own past deeds. Whatever suffering they experience is results of their own past deeds. I don't know for sure what they're experiencing, but I'm experiencing them experiencing suffering. And I understand that it's karmic seeds ripening and nothing but. And so, in fact, it can be stopped. It can end. It is unnecessary. It's present. It's real. But if I change my seeds, I will change what I see in my world, and that will change their suffering. It's hard. It's hard to really wrap our minds around that and not say, yeah, well, then that means they're not really suffering. No, they really are. No, but that means then when I change my seeds, whatever they're experiencing stops because my seeds change. What if their seeds don't change? Right. That's exactly how it works. Whose seeds do we have any kind of control over? Ha, good debate. Nobody's seeds. But whose seeds can we plant? Only our own. And when we understand that, we don't get discouraged, we get empowered. And that kind of compassion is a compassion that is protective against our discouragement, because all we need to do is do something kind. Do we have to fix their pain and suffering in the instant to say, I'm not going to get discouraged? No, because we know we can't do anything in the next instant. That doesn't mean we don't do something kind to change our seeds, to change their suffering. So we always have opportunity. Because we're constantly making new seeds. We decide what seed we're going to try to make in the face of this distress, whether it's theirs or ours. They say this compassion not only protects us by helping us choose our interactions with others to be more kind, but it also helps our good thoughts, good deeds from leaking away. So the chainmail of compassion helps also when somebody's acting badly towards us, and ordinarily up would come our mental affliction, blaming them. Our compassion, born of understanding, we have compassion for them, what they're planting, and for me, what I'm feeling, for me, what I'm experiencing, realizing, I had to have planted that to be able to experience it. And so it protects me from slipping into old habits of reactions. That's the first one, the chainmail effort. Second one, Jorwe Tsundru. This is the effort that is just work hard effort. That we made the case last week that that's not what joyous effort is about. It's having fun doing good deeds, which maybe requires hard work, maybe it doesn't. But this one is this ability to right, put ourselves going in a certain direction and keep us there. But it's not just working hard on mowing your lawn. It's working hard on two specific things, and that is working hard on collecting our two collections. So we learned last week about the collection of merit, the collection of wisdom, and how our efforts and our practice of giving, moral discipline, not getting angry with joyous effort, are gathering our collection of merit that plants the seeds for what will become our appearance body of our Buddha, our paradise and emanation being. And then our meditation, our concentration, and growing understanding of emptiness and dependent origination, our growing wisdom, serve to collect the collection of merit, wisdom, which are the seeds that will ripen into our mind of Buddha, the omniscience and Dharmakaya. So this effort that we are using, that we're pushing ourselves with, is in those two behaviors, two things that we do, which isn't really things any different. It's what we have in mind as we're doing the things that we do. That's the work hard. And it protects us from getting discouraged, because then the more we have those two concepts in mind as we're going through our day, the more any deed that we do is being planted in such a way that it's taking us towards our Buddha body and Buddha mind. So what's there to be discouraged about is his point. Then the third force, Flirtlangwa, it means the protection force of just throwing ourselves into our practices, just 100% into it. Helps prevent this getting discouraged, because it's all we're interested in doing. It's all we want to do. It's all we are doing. Again, there's nothing that we can meet up with in life that isn't an opportunity to continue to apply ourselves. So there's no need to get discouraged. Like, to me, it feels like that's every need to get discouraged, because I can't keep my mind on it 24/7. And they're saying, well, yeah, you can. We'll see. He'll say, yeah, you can. The things that we are letting ourselves get discouraged about, he says, don't worry, you can overcome those. So here, throw ourselves into it wholeheartedly. What he means by that is what we throw ourselves into is having those two states of mind, Drempa and Sheishin, even off our cushion. So Drempa is that recollection, the quality of mental attention on our object that takes us through meditation levels from 1 up to 4. Once we are at level 4, our Drempa, our recollection, is full on, and we can't lose the object completely anymore until we say so. And then Sheishin is that alarm, that point that says, check your quality of dullness or agitation on your cushion. Once we're on the object long enough for the mind to slide into agitation or dullness, our Sheishin kicks in and says, check. And then we check and we adjust whatever we find there. When we take those two cultivated in meditation and use them outside of meditation, we're applying our recollection, our Drempa, to the practice that we're working on for the day. So maybe it's the vow of the next 2 hours, or maybe it's something about the meditation that you want to put into practice, that each day we have some task at hand. Worldly life, we do that. We know what we've got to do for the day. We've got it in mind. We're focused on it. We have to keep it in mind so that we keep going on track, so that we get to the meeting we need to be there for. We're prepared for it. We have Drempa on things. Here he's saying, first thing in the morning, set your Drempa on what mental affliction you're working with, or what vow you're working with your particular practice, and train yourself to keep it in mind. And then the awareness is that checking to that alertness that recognizes when we're starting to lose our Drempa. So on cushion, Sheishin's not checking Drempa at all. Sheishin's checking dullness and agitation. But off the cushion, when we have that checker alert, it's going to alert us to having our practice in mind as we're going through our day. And when we have those two mental functions going on, our ability to keep ourselves on our Bodhisattva path grows and gets more clear to us, more clear that we're doing it, which is really helpful to get that feedback. Like every time you check in, it's like, yeah, I really did have some bodhicitta in mind. 100% no. But was it absent? No. Right? It's motivating me almost constantly. Yay. Then the fourth one, actually, I only said half of it. Dak niwangja lesu rungwa. Dak niwangja lesu rungwa. It's a little bit redundant. The dak niwangja means like making myself ready for work, like self-discipline training. And then the lesu rungwa means fit for work. And lesu rungwa is an interesting word. It gets shortened to lerung. And we hear people in the Diamond Way saying, I'm going to go do my lerung retreat. And it's exactly what it means. It's a retreat to use certain practices to make something fit for work, fit for later work. And it's how the creation stage Diamond Way prepares us for completion stage Diamond Way through these retreats called Lesu Rungwa. So here, this self-discipline to make me fit for work is how I overcome and prevent getting discouraged. So it's not limited to doing retreat at all. It's how, as we work on our new attitudes, we work on our new behavior choices, we keep our vows, how everything actually gets easier and smoother as we get more familiar with this new way of being. When something becomes so familiar that we barely have to think about it to do it, we are le surungwad. And then we up the bar a little bit and push ourselves a little bit further. So what we're working on in our Bodhisattva activities is our behavior choices according to our avoiding harming, gathering goodness, and doing both with our wish to reach total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. We're increasing the power of those activities in our life. That's this applying our own self-discipline to grow our habits into avoiding harming, being kind, doing both with bodhicitta. So it takes practice, which is what the Lei Surungwa is about. And so when we have these four forces assembled, we've trained ourselves in them, we are using them. Then Master Shantideva is saying there'll be no need to get discouraged. And when we do get discouraged, we see what we're discouraged about, and we'll find one of those four that's there to use as the antidote to that discouragement. The way we know we are overcoming discouragement, he says, is when we find ourselves more and more easily able to see ourselves and others as equal, and even find ourselves exchanging self, other for self. In the two kinds of developing bodhicitta, this is one of them. Right? So all of this guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life is about growing our bodhicitta, our wish to reach total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, growing it such that it helps us gather the goodness such that we can have the good ripening result of experiencing ultimate reality directly with the mind imbued with that bodhicitta, so that now all the deeds that we did to gather that goodness we continue to do, now gathering the goodness that will take us to our Buddhahood. So he says, when you recognize, oh my gosh, I really am wanting to care for others in the same way I care for myself, even wanting to help others ahead of myself, because it's not even ahead of myself. Like, that's where my happiness comes from. Then he says, that's a really good sign that you've overcome your discouragement, right? Or that you have the ability to overcome it when it does still arise, because it tends to still arise. And so in his next verse here, wait. He's reading our minds. How could I ever become enlightened? How can I ever do that? He gives us this beautiful quote. And Master Shantideva is quoting Lord Buddha from a sutra called Laksanki Shupe Do. Here it is. The sutra requested by Laksang, who is Subahu. In Buddha's time, he'd sit there until somebody asked a question. And then he'd answer the question, and that would be the teaching. And then finally somebody writes it down, and that becomes a sutra. So this fellow, Subahu, whoever he was, he asked some good question. And in that sutra, one of the things Buddha answers him is, those beings who are flies and gnats or bees, or even who live as worms as well, can reach unmatched enlightenment, so difficult to reach, if they develop the force of effort. So I don't know, Mr. Subahu must have said, I don't know, Buddha, I don't think I can do it. This seems too difficult. And Buddha says, come on, flies and gnats and bees and worms can do it if they just apply effort. And you're human. Come on, you're starting out so much more closer to it than a worm or a bee. Don't get discouraged. Get enthusiastic. As humans, we have the capacity to distinguish right from wrong, meaning to distinguish between deeds done that will come back to hurt me and deeds done that will come back to help me. It takes some learning because of that time gap between what I do and the result that I get. And once we have the teachings and understand them well enough, then although we cannot see those direct cause and effect results directly, we can cognitively logic out what kinds of behaviors I want to avoid and what kind of behaviors I would rather do in my effort to create goodness and burn off and not create unpleasantness. Animals can't do that. Hell beings can't do that. Hungry ghosts can't do that. Jealous gods and pleasure beings, maybe they could, but their lives are too pleasant for it to ever occur to them that they need to change their behavior. I don't quite get it, but that's the party line. And then form realm beings also too powerful and pleasured out to understand what's happening until it starts to be in their face that they're losing their goodness. And by then it's too late for them to do anything. And then formless realm, different story, things are too subtle. So as humans, we've got it perfect. And as humans who have met the Dharma, we've got it even more perfectly. And as humans who have our faculties still intact in the Dharma, we have it even more perfectly. So again, Master Shantideva is saying, please don't get discouraged. Right? You have everything that you need. Please, please, please use it to the best of your ability. And I don't know, I still have this, like this part of my mind goes, yeah, so now I'm even more discouraged because I have everything just right and I still can't do it. He would like go, come on, wake up. We'll see what he's going to say. But so somebody must have said somewhere along the line, well, like, what is it about bees and flies and gnats and worms that means if they just apply the effort, they can develop their bodhicitta and go on to Buddhahood? Why is that? Why does that help me not get discouraged? And that's where the understanding of Buddha nature comes in, because that's the point, that flies and gnats and worms and bees all have Buddha nature. So do slugs and hell beings and hungry ghosts. Any being who has consciousness has Buddha nature. And any being with Buddha nature, when we learn what Buddha nature actually is, will sooner or later burn off the obstacles and create the causes to see themselves as a fully enlightened being. Eventually. And when we understand that, and all we have to do is think, am I a conscious being? Yes. Oh, okay then. All I need to do is to do this process. And it doesn't really matter how long it takes so much. I just do it. Do it, do it, do it. Plant, 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 plant. And sooner or later, the transformation builds up until the obstacles to omniscience have been cleared away, as well as all the rest of the mental afflictions and ugliness in my world. And once we understand that we have this potential within us already, and that the only way to get there is by we planting the seeds, meaning our subject side state of mind planting the seeds, what's there to be discouraged about? We have good days, we have bad days. Either way, we have all the tools necessary. Purify the mistakes. Plant, plant, plant the goodnesses. Rejoice like crazy in the goodnesses that we do. Dedicate. Not so hard. Like, we've all trained ourselves to do hard things, whatever it is that you're good at. So we know that we can train ourselves in something new. All right. So in order to understand the message in this, don't get discouraged, because flies and gnats can do it, so can you. Geshe-la went to a different text to explain this thing called Buddha nature. So let me get this up here. Sangye is the Tibetan word for Buddha nature, Sugatagarbha in Sanskrit. Geshe-la went to Lord Maitreya's Abhidharma Alamkara. I think it's Jewel Ornament of Realizations. I could be wrong. Where Lord Maitreya goes into some depth about this thing called Buddha nature. And in Geshe-la's experience, he often would find people believing that the teachings on Buddha nature meant that every conscious being has this little crystal Buddha you inside you already, and that whatever your outer body is, whether it's human or not, is just like some dirt encasing your Buddha you, and all you have to do is scrape away the dirt and reveal yourself as Buddha. And it's like, what's wrong with that? It implies that Buddha is there already, uncreated, unrelated to seeds. Just all we have to do is clean up, and voila, we'll be Buddha once and for all. So it's a misunderstanding because of the ignorance in our mind that doesn't understand that explanation. That the Buddha nature that all conscious beings has is the fact that consciousness all beings have is itself not self-existent, that it has no nature of its own other than ripening seeds, right? Projections. We could say part of every projection. And when we understand that more and more clearly, we understand that that's an absence of our consciousness, absence of a self-nature to our consciousness that is how it is that we could be forced by our projections to perceive our own awareness as omniscient. If our consciousness had some nature of its own and now it's not omniscient, we couldn't change that, because there would be a not omniscient aspect to our mind in it, from it, unrelated to our behavior. So our Buddha nature isn't a thing, it's the absence of something that is the guarantee that we will someday be forced to perceive ourselves as Buddha and Buddha paradise emanating. But there's two kinds of Buddha nature. Not two kinds, two aspects, I guess. And we need to understand both aspects, of course, to understand either one accurately enough to apply it to our growing Bodhisattva behaviors that are growing us to the wisdom that will make our Bodhisattva behaviors actually be the causes for our Buddhahood. To understand our two kinds of Buddha nature will help us in that way, in some way. So Geshe-la says when we hear the word Buddha or totally enlightened being, it's very likely that the image that pops into our mind is Shakyamuni, at the base of the Bodhi tree, and then he gets up and he goes and teaches everybody for all that time. And Geshe-la said, yes, he is demonstrating what it is to become and be a Buddha. But when he says, when I say Buddha, he said, think these two things, but then he gave us three. So think these three things. A mind that perceives all things in the universe at once. Already I hear my mind hearing that and not understanding it quite, but let's leave it there. A mind that perceives all things in the universe at once. Second thing, think of a mind that is filled with infinite compassion for all those things. And third, a body that is appearing everywhere in the universe to help all those things, right? So suddenly things became beings as well, because you can't help a kitchen table so much, but you can help the beings who are sitting on the kitchen table, whether they're a fly or a human or a worm. So our aspiration when we say, I want to be Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, are these three things: omniscient, ultimately compassionate, and being what every being needs, right? Appearing to them in that way. Can our minds become like that? Yes, right? If they couldn't, there'd be no point in all of this. Do I think, like, ask yourself, do I really think my mind could become like that? Maybe I'm not so sure. Do I think my mind, my me, and my body have certain qualities that are not changeable? Yeah, kind of. And that's the mistake. Because if I think there's some part of me that can't be changed, I am just that way, then that way that I am is a that way in this broken world as a broken being. So I'm stuck. So I would need to like systematically go through and be checking on, what is this thing, me? And is it a changing thing? And when I say changing thing, is it a thing that's actually the same but changes, which is illogical, but you know what? We do it. Or can I really relate with the changing me that's changing moment by moment? Whew, slippery, right? That's what we do in our meditations when we're trying to find the real me, particularly in our Mahamudra. Oh, will the real me please stand up? And it's scary because there's nothing to stand up, right? Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So we can't just sit down on our meditation cushion and decide, I'm going to make myself see myself as omniscient. We can imagine it. It's useful to do that. But when we're done, we'll get up off our meditation cushion and probably blame somebody for something. And that means we're not omniscient. But that does not mean that our experience of ourself cannot evolve into that being our moment by moment experience. It's not that we reach omniscience and then we become self-existently omniscient. It will also be perpetuated just as we are perpetuating our ignorance. Our ignorance is not self-existent ignorance. It's being constantly perpetuated, which is why we can change it. If it had some nature of its own, we couldn't change it. All right. So the definition of Buddha nature from the scripture is, where is it? Sangye Sugurung. Sangye Sugurung. Sugurung means anything which could turn into. Sangye is totally enlightened being. Anything which could turn into a totally enlightened being is the definition of Buddha nature. Man, I wish this was more clear, because that just sounds so slippery. Anything that could turn into a Buddha is Buddha nature. Sounds like there are a lot of different things, but only Buddha nature can turn into Buddha. But it's not that there's only one Buddha nature either. So Geshe asks, look around the room. But he was in a room with probably 100 other people. So people were looking at other people, not just my ficus tree, my altar, right? Look around at other people. But he called them things. I don't know why. How many, are there things in this room which are not Buddhas now that could turn into a Buddha? I know. Shio says, I don't know. I agree. I don't know. I don't know who is and who isn't a Buddha. But do I know whether any of them could be a Buddha? Yeah, I think I've studied enough to say, I just don't know. I don't know how you see yourself. I do know that I don't see anybody in my world as glowing in light, acting omniscient. What would an omniscient being act like? I don't even know that. So how do I know? I know I'm not omniscient. So somehow that not omniscient assumes everybody else with a consciousness in my world is not omniscient either. And as I'm learning about the way I see them is forced on me by my seeds, because their own nature is otherwise blank, then if they have a blank nature, then it is true that any of them, all of them, could become Buddhas, both for me and for them if they're not already seeing themselves that way. Okay? If our minds have no nature of their own, then it is true that they could come to see themselves as Buddha. And if my mind has no nature of its own, it is true that I can come to see them as Buddha, and I can come to see me as Buddha. So it means something that with development can become Buddha. The consciousness of any being is that which with development can come to perceive itself as fully enlightened being. And in fact, that's the only way it will happen. If they're not perceiving themselves that way now, they have to develop it. And it's the only way I can develop seeing Buddhas in my world is for me to develop that. And the only way for me to perceive myself as Buddha is for me to develop that. So this Buddha nature is that which is developable into a Buddha? Developable. Is it a thing that's developable? I know it's like hard to say. Can be developed into is what developable means. Can be developed into. So can a chair do it? Can a table develop itself into a Buddhahood? No. Can a chair be a Buddha for me? I mean, technically, I could perceive it as a Buddha's emanation there to help me. But that doesn't make the chair a Buddha from the chair's side. The chair doesn't have a chair side if it's not a conscious being. But whoops, if it's a Buddha's emanation, is it a conscious being? I don't know the answer to that. So chairs can't do it, tables can't do it, cars can't do it. What about trees and plants and potatoes and carrots? That's a little slipperier. The party line says no, they can't do it either, but man, science is sure saying they have greater awareness than we thought. So maybe the fact that plants are empty of self nature could mean someday they have a consciousness that can become Buddha because our seeds get better. You know, we need to wait until we don't need to eat, however. And then what about the gnats and worms and hell beings and hungry ghosts? They have consciousness. And so if they have consciousness, the way they perceive their consciousness is forced on them as ripening results of their own past behaviors. The way I see them is forced on me by ripening results of my past behaviors. And so their empty mind, emptiness of their mind, is that which is developable into their own perception of them as Buddha, if they don't already. So there are two main things that turn into a Buddha. How am I doing on time? Let's start this. One is called innate Buddha nature, Rangshin Kirik. Rangshin Nerik. Sorry, here it is. Rangshin Nerik and Gengirkirik. Rangshin Nerik means innate Buddha nature. Inborn is what they say. But meaning a Buddha nature that we already have just by way of being an existing conscious being or a conscious existing being. And Geshe-la says this is probably the one that is misunderstood into thinking this term is meaning the presence of something, when in fact it's pointing out that no self existence of our mind. It's pointing out an absence, the fact of an absence. And if people didn't understand that, they would hear it to mean as some little Buddha already in there, just by way of us being existing. We have a mind now, we know that, which means that this mind and your mind, that mind, have always existed, which means they have always lacked their own nature. They've always been in the nature of ripening results of past deeds, like part of every ripening. So to have a mind now means we have always had a mind, and that mind has always been empty of self-existence, and that emptiness is its Buddha nature. And they call that the inborn Buddha nature, innate Buddha nature. They give a classical example of innate Buddha nature. I'll just read you the Tibetan. I don't want to go through it word by word. Ki gen gyao gyu ki sem den dong. It's there somewhere. Here. This says the example of innate Buddha nature is the emptiness of the mind of an old scroungy mutt. So you've got this old mutt. It has a consciousness. That consciousness has no self nature. Whether it sees itself as a scroungy old mutt or a young healthy dog or a princess or a Buddha, I don't know. How I see it, having a mind is having a mind of an old scroungy dog, and it scratches its fleas and it, eats garbage and what dogs do. So even a scroungy mutt has Buddha nature. And the point is, well, they've got one. So do I. And mine's so much closer to being able to create itself into Buddha than a scroungy old mutt is. But their Buddha nature and my Buddha nature, that it has the same quality, 100% lacking the self nature of our minds, identical in that way. Let's take our break. Are we back? Can we be back? We've got lots to do. So Geshe, he went into some detail about exploring this notion of the scroungy dog's Buddha nature and my Buddha nature. And his example was, why don't I see this as a body of light? And we know the punchline. It's like, if I'm saying that I don't, and I really don't, then, and I want to, but can't, that's being forced. How I perceive my body is being forced on me by the ripening of my own mind seeds, right? We know that punchline. And yet, when we think, oh, well, then this thing completely lacks any identity of its own, it feels like some part of us should be able to decide then what I want to see it as. If it's just blank and related to my mind, why can't I just decide to see it as a body of light? But I can't just decide. And then my mind says, so see, there must be something about it, in it, that makes me see it the way that I do. And if that were true, then the way this body is appearing, and even the fact that it's appearing, would be independent of my mind experiencing it. If my arm has a nature of its own, then if this arm was sitting on the table and I wasn't even there, if it had the nature of Susan's arm, or Sarani's arm on its own, anybody who saw it, even the fly, would go, oh, what's Sarani's arm doing there? And that's ridiculous, right? Same with the whole body. Oh, that's Sarani. But no, only for someone who had the seeds to know Sarani would recognize that as Sarani. And we go, well, of course, I don't know everybody. And then, the holy beings go, right, that shows you that anything that we perceive is dependent upon how our mind is making us perceive it. In which case, what is actually there? Like, where is the arm that I'm perceiving? It's not over here. It is here. But technically, all that's here, when I look at it, is colors, shapes. The Sarani's arm hand is in my mind. And it's like, I did it. I made the same mistake. It seems like that in my mind means in my head. But it doesn't. Here's the hand that's in my mind. Without my mind taking this information and saying my hand, there would be no my hand here. Even as these colors, shapes are still there, my mind could just as well say paw, feeler, butterfly feeler, foot. There isn't anything about this thing that makes my mind say hand. And it's like, again, we all know the punchline, but when we try to really apply it, we can watch our mind go through actually those 6 flavors of emptiness that came up earlier, to see what is it, what's giving me the indications that makes this my hand and this my ear, because technically they are no different. But they are different. They're completely different. Right. By way of seeds, by way of our forced perceptions as results of causes. Causes made by what? How we perceived ourselves interacting with others. We still have to catch that piece carefully. So is our mind taking information and making identities out of it moment by moment by moment? Yes. That means it's changing moment by moment by moment. That means the thing that it's doing that with or for is changing moment by moment by moment. And yet, there's my hand again. It looks pretty much the same. But it's not, it's different by however many instances went between when you saw it before and when you saw it again. So at any moment, can't my mind seeds perceive it differently? Yeah, because every moment it is perceiving it differently. How differently does it need to be before it's body made of love? How far away is that? Never so far away as we might think, which we started out with. How do we overcome our discouragement? Understanding our Buddha nature helps us overcome discouragement. It helps us see that we don't know what seeds we've got. We don't know what's going to ripen next. We can put ourselves on that momentum of planting kindness, planting kindness, planting kindness, and understanding that every seed planted is helping previous kindness seeds grow. You know, when's it going to ripen? Next one? Not yet. Next one? Not yet. Is that going to make us discouraged? Or is that going to say, no, just plant another one? It's got to happen. That's his point. It's got to happen eventually. When we are intentionally planting our seeds for that goal, being intentionally avoiding harming, doing kindness, under the influence, I want to do that to become a Buddha. It's got to happen. 16 lifetimes from now or tomorrow, what difference does it make? That's Master Shantideva's point. Is that discouraging or is that encouraging? The argument's empty of self-nature itself, isn't it? All right, let's go on. So what makes things change, as we know, is karma. But karma is not some cosmic force in the universe that pushes us to do things. Karma is the name of this process of what this mind is aware of itself, its subject side, acting towards others, thinking, saying, doing towards others, influences that mind in such a way that influences its experience in the future at some point. And then we respond to that result, which makes new causes. So we're burning off the results of causes as we're planting new causes, and that system is called karma. We are that system. It makes us up. So that means how we respond is how we create the causes for the results that will be the projections of Buddha me and Buddha paradise emanating, and there's no other place that that Buddha us will come from than our behavior towards others. That's why kindness is key. As we care for others more and more, our mental impressions become sweeter and more powerful. As we hurt others, our impressions become uglier and dangerous-er. And for most of us, we're doing some combination between kindness and harmfulness, even in our attempt to be kind sometimes, because it's a process of training that we fine-tune our ability to act with greater and greater subtlety in the avoiding harming and gathering goodness. And we will make progress. The fact that we're on the Bodhisattva path, studying these things and trying, means we're already making progress, whether you see it or not. We have the potential because we are conscious beings, and because everything about our being lacks its own nature, and so is nothing but ripening results of our own past behavior. Our current behavior then is the arena in which we create. We create ourselves and our world. All right, let's go on here. So every conscious being has this nature, and you are a conscious being, so no reason to get discouraged, is his punchline. Wait. There's another Buddha nature. There's another Buddha nature, meaning the Buddha nature that is what will become the appearance of your Buddha. So the Buddha nature that is innate is the emptiness of our mind. The Buddha nature that gets developed into the appearance side, that is because of the emptiness of our mind. Our me can be developed into forced perception, Buddha me and Buddha paradise emanating. So it's not like we can say, oh, here's this little, like the little plastic baby in the bread. It's not like I have one of those inside me that I'm going to develop into my Buddha me. But this body, speech, and mind that makes up me now, because of its empty Buddha nature, it's Buddha nature that's empty, it can be developed into that body made of light, made of love, made of compassion, made of wisdom. But even I said that wrong, because I said it can be made into something else. And that's not quite right. It means my mind can be developed into having the seeds to force me to perceive what would have been this thing now is my angel body, Buddha paradise body, and emanating body with the Buddha mind, that both of which are pushed forth because we have that innate Buddha nature. So this other Buddha nature is the Gengyurki-rik, the Buddha nature which requires development. The innate Buddhahood we have already, 100%, 100% empty of self-nature. The becoming a Buddha requires development. And they have a example, again, the classical example is the mental seed of an immaculate mind in the mind of an old scroungy mutt is its Buddha nature that is developable. So again, it's like that's supposed to clarify what we mean by the thing that gets developed into a Buddha. Some kind of potential just by existing is what will be developed into Buddhahood, whether that potential is forcing the being to see itself as a scroungy dog now or not, or us as human. How's that different than the emptiness of the mind? The potential, the seed is a presence. It is something. It's already ripening. It is what's empty. So we have this seed for an immaculate mind just by way of being conscious, being a conscious being. So it takes some chewing on what's the difference and why does it take both. Buddha nature needs both an appearing side and its empty side, as any other existing thing requires. So you can't just say, oh, I have Buddha nature and it's the emptiness of me, without understanding that that Buddha nature has to appear in some way in order to have its emptiness. So maybe we could say our own consciousness, right, that goes from moment by moment by moment, is our Buddha nature that needs development. Well, that's cool. Then, we're all Buddhas in the making. And so is the scroungy mutt, because we have seeds in our mind. And those seeds can be purified and new ones planted until we have the immaculate ones to force us into Buddha me in Buddha paradise, Buddha you in Buddha paradise. So hooray, don't be discouraged. So no matter how lousy you think your efforts are, said Geshe Michael, you know about Buddha nature. That puts you really, really close to achieving knowing your Buddha nature directly. And that puts you really, really close to changing the perception of your own being into Buddha you and Buddha paradise, just by having ripened the seeds to hear those beings who are flies and gnats or bees or worms. They can reach total enlightenment if they just develop the force of effort. Someone like me, someone born as a member of humankind, can tell what helps or hurts. Assuming then that I never give up the Bodhisattva's way of life, why shouldn't I reach enlightenment? Yay. Okay. So Master Shantideva knows our minds, and we go, oh, but if what it takes to become a bodhisattva means that if somebody needs my hand or leg, I'll just happily give it away. It's like, I can't do that. That's going to hurt so much. It's really not going to help. We'll have all these excuses. How can I be a good bodhisattva if I'm armless? And we'll avoid the opportunity. And he says it's nothing more than a misunderstanding, ignorance, a failure to judge what's really heavy or light that makes us afraid. Okay. Geshe-la described it as pointing out our attachment to our bodies, our attachment to the aversion of discomfort and pain. Not that any of that's a bad thing, but in the sense that it's all born of our misunderstanding of where anything comes from. In that misunderstanding is our very relationship with our very me, and how we think me is my body, and that when my body dies, my me must die as well. Even if we say, no, I know I go on, there's a part of us that is so reliant on the body for our ability to manipulate, think we can manipulate in things in the world, that the idea of either being separated from that body completely or losing our own identity is so terrifying that we don't even try to relate to ourselves in that way. When we do, whether we have one hand or three or none, wouldn't make any difference in our ability to be a bodhisattva. It's hard to no, right? Humans need hands. But by losing our hands does not make us less of a bodhisattva. And if we gave them away on purpose, like, how could you do that? How could that benefit anybody? But if it could, would we be willing? Just imagine if there were such a world that if somebody didn't have an arm and you could give them yours, their life would get easier and better. Would we be willing? I'm not saying we have to. At some point in a bodhisattva's career, they use their body in that way. And maybe their goodness is such that when they turn around, a new arm has grown back like a frog, It's possible. In which case, it'd be a whole lot easier to give our legs and arms away if we know we're going to get another one. But that justification isn't the point. The idea is that these fears that we have that limit our ability to give of ourselves, our time, our resources, our wisdom, whatever it is that we have that we don't give when we could. It's all born of this misunderstanding that if we give it away, we'll have less. And of course, that's the opposite. We will, if we do give our purse away, we won't have our purse or its contents. But it's not that we will have less in things to give. There will be other opportunities to give other things. And it comes back to us bigger as we know. Yeah. We have been beaten, sliced, cut, chopped to pieces, and we didn't use it to reach enlightenment before, but we could have, apparently. We say, yeah, but the suffering will be so bad. Bodhisattvas aren't obligated to suffer in their good deeds. And Master Shantideva says, look, a doctor makes use of treatments that are painful in order to bring about a cure, don't they? Like it hurts to get you get cut. It hurts to have them stitch it back up, even when it's numbed up. It hurts to get it numbed up. It hurts to get fixed. He says, come on. You're trying to fix yourself ultimately. Why would you think it wouldn't hurt a little bit from time to time? When we hurt on behalf of all others, whoa, what a huge imprint that makes on our minds. Okay? To take on some hurt in order to stop the pain of every other living being, isn't that worth it? Or maybe to what extent can we take on pain in order to stop the pain of all other beings? And maybe our ability to take on discomfort can grow. And we would be less busy, less involved in doing what we had to do to avoid unpleasant circumstances, that instead we just carry on. Pleasant, unpleasant, we know how to respond, we know what to do. And so, like, we do so much effort avoiding unpleasant things. And how much more invigorating could we be if we didn't have to do all that avoiding and we just used it all? Right? Easier said than done. Does not mean walk yourself into a harmful situation intentionally. But enough suffering happens to all of us that when we are in that mode of being able to use it, right? It's like the icebreaker ship, instead of having to sail all the way around all the ice, it just goes, let's go right through this. And it just cracks it and plows through. Our Bodhisattva attitude with our understanding of our bodhicitta and our Buddha nature, we could be like that big icebreaker ship and just plow through the icebergs for the sake of all sentient beings. Geshe-la goes on to say, as a bodhisattva, at some point, our practice becomes so pleasurable, even when we're experiencing things. Oh, here it comes. Even when we're experiencing things that are unpleasant, we can still be experiencing it blissfully. Well, that's weird. Can your next migraine still be at a level 9 out of 10 and be blissful? 9 out of 10 pain and be blissful. They say yes. The Supreme Physician does not perform his treatments in a way that's like those others, the ordinary ones. I'm sorry, honey, this is going to hurt, but it'll be better later. Supreme Physician, he cures the massive and infinite ills using a particular kind of technique that is gentle in the extreme. He teaches us the blissful path to bliss. And still our minds might say, I can't do it. Like, especially when he's saying, look, enjoy the practice, whether it's pleasurable or not pleasurable. And in fact, enjoy it so much that what we're really experiencing is this thing called bliss, like this really powerful, pleasurable sensation of love flowing through you, love for everything and every other flowing through you and out of you. It's so pleasurable. And we can get to the point where everything we interact with, even if it's getting stitches, can give this sense of bliss because we're using it as the tools for making our transformation. And Geshe-la says the highest thing we can do for those all sentient beings around us is to grow and be able to sustain this bliss on our path, because it influences others. It radiates from us. Not that we can give it to someone else exactly, but it sets an example. It raises the energetic influence of everybody around you to be in this state of bliss. And so Geshe-la says we do what we have to do to cultivate the ripening of this blissful path to bliss for everybody else's benefit. And it's the least selfish thing that we can do. It may seem like it's the most selfish thing to do to the other people in our life, because it's probably going to mean more meditation time, more study time, missing their birthdays, missing Thanksgiving, being in retreat, right? Withdrawing from ordinary world periodically for long enough to get ourselves out of ordinary world, and then coming back into ordinary world to try on for size what we learned about ourselves when we were in retreat. And that all of that on behalf of growing this blissful path to bliss for everyone is the highest thing we can do for those that we love and those that we don't love. It's the highest thing we can do for everybody. And it's so, so difficult when we still have connections and obligations and expectations, both on ourselves and from others. And we need to complete those obligations to the extent that we can and have this goal in mind, this recognition that the more pure my mind becomes, the more effective I can be in helping those others come to see themselves in that same way. And there's no other way we can help people in that deep and ultimate way. Lots of ways we help people, but not in a way through which will help them stop their suffering forever. So, we hear a talk like this and are inspired and, oh, yes, I really, really want to do that. And then we go out the next day and get stuck in traffic and are late to an appointment, and the person yells at us, and we're right back. I know it happens to me. I don't get yelled at, but I yell at myself. I get mad at myself, And then, oh man, how am I ever going to do this? Enough, right? Well enough. How's this? Discouragement comes up. And Master Shantideva, he knows. And so he says, look, the guide directs us at the beginning to do our acts of charity with vegetables and the like. And once we've grown accustomed to that, then gradually, in good time, we find that we can offer even our flesh. So we hear that, Master Shantideva, he says, just give carrots and potatoes. Give the things that are easy to give in our practice of giving. For starters, if we can't give $10, give $1. If we can't give $1, give the apple from your lunch. If you can't give the apple, right, find something that's comfortable with giving. Find some way in our ethical discipline growing that's comfortable. I can stop poisoning the ants in my garden. That's easy enough to do. Right? Find something that's easy. And we do it regularly. And then we recognize, okay, now I can add something else because now something else also seems to be easy. So I take on another easy thing. And now I'm protecting the lives of two kinds of bugs, maybe. And that's easy too. And when it becomes easy, I take on another easy thing. And you see what happens is that each of the things that's easy to take on, that's new, if we had started there, it would have been too hard. But because of the goodness of starting easy, our goodness has grown. And so now there's another easy thing, and then another easy thing. But in fact, you're doing harder and harder and harder things. They're just not hard anymore. So that by the time we get to the point where somebody might ask us for our eyeball, sure, reach in, pluck it out. You know, as we would have the karmic goodness that we would actually be able to do that, and it would benefit them in some way. Like in my world, it wouldn't help anybody at all to reach in and pluck out my eyeball, even if it didn't hurt me to do it. They'd go, what am I supposed to do with this? Right? We were supposed to go to surgery. But do you see how my seeds could have grown such that like the reality would be, yeah, you need one here. I'll stick it right in your socket and they would be able to see. Sounds like magic. You know, it wouldn't be magic. It would be good seeds ripening. And by then it wouldn't be hard to do because of the ants and the flies and the cockroaches and the rabbits and right? And the careful driving and all the different ways that I built up my ability to be more and more kind in more and more challenging ways that didn't seem to be challenging at all by the time I got there. It really is an amazing system. So really, in a way, it's better to start little and build up because we'll be more successful than if we say, oh, okay, I'm going to, I'm going to impose this new behavior on me, and then I can't actually achieve it because I bit off something too big for me to chew. And how do we know? We personally get to be the judge. If you go to the Lama, tell me what to do. Fasten your seatbelt. They may not start with carrots and potatoes with you. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. But just do your own self-guidance. It really is a beautiful system. Well, I'm surprised I'm finished early because I was in such a rush not to go late. I won't do that next time. So, okay, Luisa's got questions. I appreciate that. I'm going to stop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the class, Lama. I have a question that it's not so clear to me with the Buddha nature.
Okay.
So until now, my understanding was that the Buddha nature is our emptiness, meaning this possibility to become a Buddha. But
Correct.
today, what I understood from you is that there is also some appearance part to that. So it's not only the emptiness, but it's something else that I didn't get.
Right. They call it the seed, the potential to become Buddha. And it's like that we've got emptiness and we've got seeds, right? The seeds are all empty of self-nature. We have our mind, which is empty of self-nature. We have our me aspect of the mind, which is empty of self-nature. And we have these seeds. So because we have a mind that's empty of self-nature, to have the mind at all, is how I understand it, is the seed that means that mind can be developed into perceiving itself as omniscient. The appearance the mind's appearance is this developable Buddha nature. The emptiness of that mind is its innate Buddha nature. We wouldn't have an innate Buddha nature if we didn't have the appearing mind that's empty. So it takes both. To have the mind as a ripening seed.
So it's like this is the baseline, meaning no mind,
Think of it that way.
no Buddha nature.
Right. No mind, no Buddha nature.
And the mind is empty, and my Buddha nature is also the emptiness of my mind.
The innate Buddha nature is the emptiness of your mind. And
so that I can become a Buddha by my seeds,
right,
which are empty also.
right.
That trigger another question. So the seeds are empty. However, in the moment I am planting the seed, let's say I am paying attention to the class. So I am planting the seed of being taught. No, because I have to teach others. Anyways, I am planting some seed. In the moment I'm doing that, the emptiness of the seed is getting an identity. It's not empty anymore in the sense that in that moment is being instantiated, no?
The emptiness isn't affected. The emptiness of that seed comes into appearance when that seed is made. So the fact that that seed is empty, it is the seed you made, and it is being influenced by all the other seeds coming along. And it is going to find its way into manifestation. And every moment of that seed is still 100% lacking it being a seed in it from it, which it can't be because
Yeah, true.
we had to do that thing to make the seed. But the emptiness of the seed isn't influenced by the seed and its changing. It's just 100% empty of that seed having its own nature ever.
It's just that it makes me think there is kind of a seed waiting, like if there is a queue of seeds,
Yeah.
and they are empty, and in the moment I do say or think something, they are being colored by that whatever I'm doing. But where are those seeds before? Like
Right.
there are no seeds. So where are we really?
Right. That's all how we describe how the thing we call mind is influenced by the things we call me thinking, doing, saying towards others. Like, in order to explain that and come to understand it, we think of it as these discrete moments, things happening, this touches that. But then as we understand more and more deeply, it's like, no, 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 that was helpful for me to understand the process, but I'm understanding that it's more and more simply the words we use to describe the process that explains our experience. So there's not a seed that gets colored. The imprint of the mind, it is what we call the seed, but it doesn't become a tangible thing. The mind has been influenced in that way at that moment. And that influence is influencing others and being influenced until it brings about its cause, and then it's done. Its influence has had its effect, and it's not there anymore.
And when it is projected, I mean, when it brings about its result,
right?
then I am creating my reality. And in that moment, is it still the same seed?
Depends on what you mean by same. It is the seed that was made, that was the original cause of this current experience. But it's not the same seed because it's changed until it got into crossing the threshold into my experience. So you can't call it the same seed, but it's not some other seed. Language just fails.
So it's also the seeds as seeds is just a construct to explain the process,
Right.
but it's not really like pieces of the mind
Right.
awaiting for some me,
Right.
other piece of the mind acting for them
Right.
to be modified.
Right. Right. It's these constant influences shape-shifting.
And Geshe-la says when he had the experience of seeing the pot, then he says you can see the seeds creating.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
says it's a luminous little thing.
Right.
Is this also just a construct, like a metaphor for us to be able to
Yeah.
grasp?
Yeah. I think it's the best way that he can describe the experience that he had, that was the experience of directly the mind creating the experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lama.
Yeah. Great. Good. All right. I think I covered all your homework. So remember that being that we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class? We created some extraordinary goodness here. And that's something to be happy about, proud of, even to be encouraged by, to overcome our discouragement if we have any. So please be happy with yourself. Your goodness ripens as this class and what you hear. So hooray. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy beings. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close. Continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom, and may it be so. All right. Thank you again for the opportunity to share. I always learn stuff. Where's my cursor? Okay. Stop recording. Yes, Janet.
So this is like cross-talking with Louisa
Okay.
that you have these black and white seeds and they're only white when you give up the body and there's actually more than one way. It's not just the physical body at death, but like right now we dedicated the seeds. So it wasn't about our bodies, but it was a good deed. And I'm sure there are other ways too, but there's something about this like not having a body when you do the deed that makes it the pure white seed. I hope I find some more other than those two. Do you have more, Lama Sarani?
Yeah, I have to think about it. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that.
Because the seeds are both black and white, just like Mike's cat.
Yeah,
They're not pure white,
right.
but they are pure white if you give up the body.
So you're saying the seeds that you create in the bardo are pure.
That's probably a third one. No, it doesn't work that
No,
way.
no, uh-uh. I don't think so. I'll have to think about it. Hmm. We'll find other ways to make pure white seeds. Okay, I'm stopping recording.